And there we go. So today is the very last time that we are going to do just plain code. And the very first time that we are going to start using kind of what I like to call modern code in terms of our standards. Next class, so this Saturday, we are going to start time series. And after that, we are going to have our first test. So be very aware that the first test is going to be time series and coding. So practice how to make functions, practice how to do different stuff that one, you have been taught, and two, you have the tools to create. Okay? Check through the external resources and practice. So I'm going to share not just my R Studio session today, I'm going to share my whole screen. And why? Not because I want to show you my WhatsApp chat. In fact, I want to minimize that so we don't get anything filtered. But what I want you to show you, what I want to show you is Excel and R right next to it. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen now. Okay, so you should be watching right now on my left side of the screen our studio, on my right side of the screen Excel. I'm going to change this a little bit to have a little bit more space. Okay, that's good. So first, notice that this is the first time that we're calling a library. So what is a library? We briefly talked about it, but a library or a package is an amalgamation of functions, databases, objects of different types, new types of objects even, and it allows you to do things either faster or more effectively, or even basically just copying somebody's code that allows you to do something easier, right? So tidyverse is a irregular package in its terms because it loads more. It's not just one package; it's a package of packages. So tidyverse loads ggplot2. We've talked about ggplot. Loads stable, which is an upgraded version of a data frame. Loads tidier, which is a package that allows us to wrangle data frames. Loads reader, which is a package that allows you to load different types of files easier. Loads per, which allows you to vectorize stuff easier and do some substitutes of loops. Loads dplyr, which is the broader package to tidier. Loads stringer to work with text. Loads forcats to work with factors. And each one of these loads other packages that they are dependent on. One of the first package that they are dependent on is the package called MacReader, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before, how do you get a package? If your R session is new, if you try to do library tidyverse, you won't have it over here because you have not installed it. So how do you install a package? You go to install packages and you start writing up tidyverse. And it will pop out over here. It's going to search on the CRAN repository, which is where all the approved packages are loaded into, and you can install it. Or this also updates it. Only need to run that once on your computer. So every single time you want to load a package, you just go library and the package name. Next package that I'm going to use right now is called read Excel. which by the name, you can easily tell that it loads Excel files into R. This is actually not the one that I use on a daily basis. The one that I use on a daily basis is called OpenExcel. This is an older version, a more used one. I prefer this one, but we're going to use, for now, this one. So we are going to load up, not this one, this one. We're going to load up the spending Excel file. Now, how does my spending Excel file look? Let me minimize this so you can see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. Month, expenses, amount, number of expenses, and budget. Now, I'm going to go side by side and do both things. How do you do it in R and how do you do it in Excel? So first of all, how do we read an Excel file in R? We use the function read Excel from the read Excel package. It's the same name if you use the OpenXLX package. So if you don't know what a function does, you go over here and you check. Now, what arguments does this function take? First, path. Every single time you see path is a file path. Okay. So we input in a character format our file path. Everything else is, as you can see, it has defaults. So they are non-mandatory, so optional arguments. You may need them. So say you just want to load one sheet, or say you want to load something else, just to specify range, just you want to change you want to take the first row as column names, you want to change the column type, say you don't want this to be character, you want it to be factors, or so forth, then you need to give it more parameters. But right now, we don't need it. So we just run this and we get spending. Now notice that the read Excel package already puts this in a table. And we've talked a little bit about table. Now a table, let me just change something. That's fine. Okay. So a table is an upgraded version of a data frame. So it lets us see more information, and when we are trying to do some operations with the data frame, it will run a little bit faster. Okay. Now we use this once, I believe, in some example. Yeah, when we were doing ggplot. This is a Magritte operator. And why is it called a Magritte operator? Because it comes from the library Magritte. So the library Magritte basically adds a lot of things that now are incorporated into either tidyr or dplyr. But what the Magritte operator does for us is it adds the function pipe. So this is a pipe operator. What the pipe operator means, basically. So see, we have spending and the column month. Do we not have one? Oh, come on. Yeah. I need to delete this. And delete also this. And run this again. I already had it solved, so I have to load it up again. There we go. So we get the column month. It's a simple character. Now, what happens if we want to know what is the length? So how many objects we have in that vector? We can just do length of spending month. Now, how do we do this with the Magritte operator? So the Magritte operator allows us to take an object and apply a function to it, and it assumes that the first argument will be the object. So this is like saying take this and put it over here. That's exactly what it's doing. Okay. Now here is a very simple example. However, you'll notice that in a few, this will be way easier. Okay. Now we want to know which quarter this month represents. Now it's in text, so it's harder for Excel to check what quarter it is. Let's create a column called quarter. Now I already have the function written up for Excel. That's a nested if, so it's a complex if logic. So if my cell is January or February or March, Q1. If not, then we open up another if. April or May or June, then Q2. Then if not, and so forth. So it's a nested if, and at the very end, if it's neither of all the options I've listed, then just put NA. And we get our column. Okay. How do we do this in R? Let me just increase this size a little bit. Okay. So we get our spending object. What are we going to do with the spending object? We're going to use a function called mutate. So mutate either adds or modifies a variable inside our data frame. So in this case, we are adding one called quarter. If you write a name that already exists, such as expense, it will override expense. If you write something that doesn't exist in your data frame, it will create a new variable. So in this case, quarter will be our new variable. Quarter will be what? So case when is exactly what we need in this occasion. It's basically a complex if statement. So what this is saying is if whatever is in our month variable, so Jan, Feb, March, etc., is either is inside this list, is inside this vector, so January, February, or March, we'll get, so this is what the squiggle means, Q1. Next condition. If it's in April, May, June, Q2. Next condition. July, August, September, Q3. Next condition. October, November, December, Q4. If it doesn't match anything, so true, NA. Okay? So, now that we check our new variable, we cannot check it out because it's small, but we have it here. Now, this is way more readable than this. Okay. Pivot tables. So pivot tables are a thing that a lot of people use a lot in Excel. Okay. So we want to do total expenses and budget by expense type and quarter. So let's create our pivot table. We select our data. We go to, I believe it's data. Let me just open this up. Insert pivot table, new worksheet. Okay, and what did we want to do? We wanted to do total expenses and budget. So total expense, I think, is expense, and budget by what? By expense type and quarter. Okay, here's over here. One is expense type. Oh, expenses is the expense type. And what else do we want? Budget. We have budget. Total expenses is amount then. Okay. So I think this is what we wanted. It's either this or the other way around. I think it's the other way around what we want. So let's do this. Okay. So here we have consulting, all of them, then by quarter, our budget and our amount. Okay. And how do we do this in R? It's very, very simple. Let me just. So we get our spending quarter object. Let me just increase the size so you can see better. Okay. We are going to group by. So group by basically tells R that every single operation that we are going to do thereafter is going to be done by groups. And which groups are we taking in? Expense and quarter. So in this case, consulting Q1, that's one group. Consulting Q2, that's another group. Consulting Q3, that's another group. Consulting Q4, another group, and so on. Okay. Then what operations are we going to do? We're going to summarize. So summarize, like the name says, is going to reduce our data frame to a summary of it. And what are we going to summarize? So expenses will be the sum of number of expenses. So we've added another one. So let's even add it over here. There you go. Now it's the same. So number of expenses, the sum of amount, and the budget amount. And this is our spending table. And if we want to check it out, very, very similar to it, we have it over here. Okay. Total expenses, sum of budget, total budget amount. Sum of expenses, I mean. And if we over here change the order of show details, no, value field settings, show field list. If we change the order of this, it's exactly the same. Yep. So that is how we do a summary in R of data, like we would do with pivot tables. So let's add a new variable, for example. Let's add a variable called leftover. So we're going to take our spending table. How do we add a new variable? We use mutate. So mutate a new variable called leftover, and leftover is going to be total budget amount minus expenses. And then we are going to order our table. Now we introduce this feature using the function sort. The tidyverse version of sort is called arrange. So arrange orders your data frame or table by one or more variables. In this case, we are going to just order it by one, and it's called the one called leftover. So we're going to order it in descending fashion. What does this mean? It means that on the type of expense slash quarter that we had most of our budget left over, it's going to appear first, and then the one where we went negative the most is going to appear last. How do we do this in Excel? Now, this is a hassle in Excel. So once you've done a pivot table, if you try to do this, you'll get this whole get pivot data function. And you don't want that. So you actually need to type manually the cells so you don't get that get pivot table thing. Now, how do you sort this? You would need to copy your table and paste it as a range, not as a dynamic object, and then you can sort it out. Over here, we just did arrange, descending, leftover, and we're ready. So, what can we take from this analysis? Definitely, office supplies can be cut up in terms of budget. Like, they are not using up all the budget. What else? Lawsuits. We're losing a bunch of money in lawsuits, or we're not budgeting efficiently in lawsuits. Then what else can you say? Here we can say, for example, order it by expense, and you can see that office happy hour, you had a lot of money left on quarter 1, 2, and 4, but once summer hit in, so summer in the northern hemisphere, the office went nuts with parties. Okay. So if you just wanted to check the office happy hour, we can use filter. So filter is actually something that we didn't have in Excel until a year ago. So if you do this, there is now a function called filter. This did not exist before. So filter, unique, XLOOKUP, a lot of things have been added to Excel that are very, very much welcome. Lambda functions as well. That are very much welcome, but have been possible in other things for a while. Okay. So far, any question, guys?
Gonzalo, sí, una pregunta, disculpa. Entonces, en el caso, por ejemplo, del summary, o sea, a diferencia del mutate, es como que un resumen.
Summarize. Mute,
Sí.
summary is another function, actually.
Ah, ya sé, disculpa. El summarize. Entonces, si utilizamos grupo, para cada grupo te sale como un resumen de esa variable, pero si yo quisiera aplicar, o sea, es como que te contrae toda la tabla, pero en cambio mutate te crea como que una nueva variable, pero no es que te corte nada, ¿no? O sea, se quedan todos,
Nothing.
si son... Ah, ok,
You're
ya.
going to keep everything.
Ya,
However,
perfecto.
I do think that there is an argument for mutate that drops your thing. It might be very, very much hidden into the optional arguments. But if you want to drop some columns, there is a select. There's a select function. So say over here, if leftover, if we just wanted expense, quarter, and leftover, we can do select expense, quarter, leftover. We just keep those three. Everything else.
Perfecto.
And notice that we are still grouped by expense. So if you try to do another summarize or a mutate that's row-wise, we're not going to go into row-wise stuff, but you are going to go by expense. So everything by office supply would get crumbled up if you do a summarize. If you don't want to keep that, you can do ungroup. And now notice that we don't have the group thing over here. Okay. Now, XLOOKUP is already a thing in Excel, but for a while we just had VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, or a little bit more convoluted but more useful, index and match. We are going to Let me first delete my whole environment to clean up stuff. We're going to open another Excel file called superheroes. And we are going to load. Now we are going to use an additional argument. We're going to use the sheet because we have a lot of data points over here, a lot of data frames, potentially. We're going to load it up individually. So superheroes, it's going to be the, oh, come on. Sometimes when you're working with, so this is a relative pathing. So these two dots tells you wherever I am and go from there. Does this work? It does. Okay. There we go. So we have two data frames. One is superheroes and two is identity. So before looking it up into R, let's look it up into Excel. So it's the sheet heroes and the sheet alter egos. So we have heroes, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, etc., from which universe they come from, if they have powers or not. Batman, for example, has a lot of money, no powers. First appearance in a comic on a date basis. Then alter egos. So alter egos is the hero name, so the alter ego. So Superman is Clark Kent, Batman is Bruce Wayne, etc. Is it secret? Yes. So unless you take the revelation of Mysterio, nobody knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So what are we going to do? So you can see that we have heroes on both of them. What if we want to have just one data frame? Over in Excel, you use VLOOKUP, right? Over here, we are going to use something called join. So in this case, we're going to use, and it's actually the most used, left join. So what does left join does? So left join takes the item on the left, in this case superheroes, and it joins it by the item on the right, so identities. So it's using this as base, and then it applies whatever information it has on this to the base. It does need something to base itself upon. It actually is smart enough to know that there's a hero here and a hero here, and it will automatically pick it. But it's always preferable that you specify it. So we're going to join by hero. Okay. So we had our general superhero database, which are the first 4 columns, and we've added its alter ego and if it's secret or not. Now we didn't get, for example, Black Lightning. Now, was Black Lightning not in the second data frame? It was, but why wasn't it taken? Because I think there's like a space or something else. I'm pretty sure I pinpointed this once. Yeah, something that it's written differently. Tell me.
It was a typo in the first data frame.
On the Black Lightning?
Yes.
Light. You're right. Thank you. So if we change it up, then we should get a complete data set. Here. There we go. No. I didn't load it up again. My bad. There we go. So Jefferson Pierce is Black Lightning. Black Lightning is a black superhero from the hood, which has lightning powers and two lovely daughters. And he fights mostly the drug mafia. Great comic book, great series. I'm not sure if it's on Netflix or Amazon Prime, but it's good. And it has an amazing soundtrack. So before going more into Black Lightning, we've joined the two data frames. How do we do that into Excel? We would need to get over here and say, get these two columns. We look up. We're going to look Superman, where we're going to look at here. Actually, we can do it over here. So 2 and then 3. Three, and this is A. Now notice something. We don't have Power Man, Miss Marvel, and Ironheart over here. We have that with an ace, and over here, do we have that with an ace? So why is that? So what R does is called a fuzzy join, and it's not as fuzzy as one means. And what fuzzy means in terms of coding. So fuzzy means that it corrects some things and says, hey, this is very, very similar to what you're looking at. So I'm going to join it by this one. Excel expects every single time something exact. If we are putting up the 0, right? If we're putting up the 1, it does approximations. And what's difference in this case? So Powerman, let's go and search Powerman. So Powerman over here had 1 space over here. And Miss Marvel also had a space. By the way, Miss Marvel is going to be an upcoming movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And they are going to change the whole history on that character. Hopefully it's good. And also Ironheart. Ironheart also had a space. So you would need to manually fix that thing in Excel. Over here, you don't have that issue. We're going to load up their powers. So that's the third one. And this one also. So we load up their powers and we load up their occupation. So powers, we already know the general idea of it. A lot of them have more than just the ones focused over here, but it's just main power. Okay, and then occupation is if they have an alter ego, what do they do? Okay, and we have Hal Jordan over here. We don't. Okay. Now notice something. On powers, we have the hero name. On occupation, we have the alter ego. Okay, so their real name. So we are going to get our superhero identities, which is the data frame that we created merging the first two. We are going to do a left join by first with powers and by hero, because this one is easy, right? Exactly the same thing that we've already done. Okay, I'm just going to run those two. Okay, so now we have let me just a little bit more. Just okay, so now we can see that our data frame is working. Okay. Now we are going to join by occupation, but notice something. Here, it's named alter ego, and so is in our data frame. But over occupation is called name. So how do we solve that? We solve this by telling R that on the data set on the left, alter ego is the same as on the data set on the right is name. Okay. We run this up. We get our full database of heroes complete. And for some reason, the flash is not on the powers thing. So flash. It just says flash. It doesn't say the flash. So how will we solve that? We would need to change it over here, right? But those are the kind of things that one might encounter, and so data cleaning is always a very important step when you're doing any type of data management. Okay. Now, I'm lastly going to show you a function called glimpse. Now, glimpse is very similar to what we saw with structure. Okay, so structure, and here is full. This a table, 26 by 8 data frame, and all of the things. Now, glimpse is basically the same, but it's way more ordered and way cleaner. Okay, it's just that thing. So we went really quickly through this. Do you guys have any questions? I guess not.
Gonzalo, yo tengo una pregunta corta, pero es sobre la dirigida del sábado. No sé si te la podría hacer, por favor.
Sure, go ahead.
Ya, mira, no sé si puedo compartir pantalla sobre un código, una línea.
Yeah.
Ya, a ver. Ya está. A ver, justo tenía ya esta duda en simulación. Tú habías dicho que en la parte que era del cálculo de valor de pi, hagamos una que sea con supply y otra que sea con repeat. Mi duda es la siguiente, o sea,
With replicate, no repeat.
sí, disculpa, replicate. Mi duda es la siguiente. Entonces, por ejemplo, vimos que con supply iba como que primero, o sea, le dabas como que, ponías como que una categoría del 1 al 1000. Entonces ibas aumentando. Primero era 1, 2, 3.
Right.
En ese caso se referiría ese código a la ley de grandes números, ¿no?
Right. So the supply exercise is with the law of large number, and the replicate example is to do something with Monte Carlo simulation. So doing the same thing a lot of times and then taking up the mean.
Ya, perfecto. Y justo también dijiste si podríamos hacer con ggplot para ver gráficamente. Y ya, mira, hice, por ejemplo, arriba hice como que un ggplot con esto y me salió normal. No lo tengo, voy a ponerlo. A ver. Un toque. Pero a ver, ya está. Un ratito, disculpa. A ver. Ya está. Ya bueno, mientras carga ya. Acá como que sí carga ggplot, pero luego, por ejemplo, cuando traté de hacerlo con Monte Carlo, en la última parte, por ejemplo, acá ahí que hiciste ya. Acá como que ya cerca, entonces hice lo mismo, pero con ggplot normal. Luego traté de hacerlo de Monte Carlo, que hiciste tú. O sea, ya, acá le puse poquito, le puse un poco más.
Do not use the data for an object name. So there are some reserved names that you should not use. So I try to use that, for example, DAT instead of data.
Ya. Justo te iba a comentar de eso, mira. Ya, por ejemplo, aquí ya, cuando cargas tu código normal, o sea, sí se grafica bonito ya. Ahorita, bueno, supongo que se va a demorar algo. Ya, claro, sale esto. Y también, claro, con la CAI se puede poner todo y se ve perfecto. Pero hice como que para tratar de hacer con ggplot, lo que se me ocurrió fue primero crear un vector que sería dat. Entonces tengo como que dos lados, uno donde está las x y otro donde está las y. Entonces yo dije, si a esos valores x, y, o sea, hago lo mismo que viste acá, supuestamente debería salirme los que están en el círculo y después, cuando hago esto, los que no están en el círculo. Sin embargo, cuando pongo ggplot, me sale
exactly
esto. Ahora,
so that doesn't exist. It's the AT now.
espérate. Ya, me sale esto. Ahora, yo he intentado primero
I see.
Sí,
Okay.
sí.
Can I?
Sí, sí. Espérate. Quito la pantalla. Ah, ya. Ahí está. Listo.
So how do you want this to do how do you want to do this in ggplot? First of all, you don't want to put your statics over here.
Yeah.
Second, ggplot has this great thing. So let's include it's in circle. Let me just look at it. Is it a vector of logicals? I, for some reason, cannot run something. Okay, yeah, it is a vector of logicals. So let's put over here. Yeah, it's in circle. For some reason, I cannot do Control Enter. So
yeah, yo lo hago, no te preocupes.
Can you please run that one? Okay. Sí, yes. And we are going to over here remove this, just to X and Y. And we are going to include a new static. Now, this static is also part of the point and is also a variable. So something that relates to a variable goes inside the AAs, so inside the static. If it's something non-related to a variable, it goes outside. Okay.
Yeah.
So this will be, just to clarify, this is X. You have the keyword differently. Okay. This is X. This is Y. Now, color, or in this case, is points. So color will be is in circle.
Ah, ya lo vi, sí.
And let's also do fill. It's in circle. Oh, come on. For some reasons, it opens a chat box when I want to press enter. Fill.
Sorry.
No problem.
Yo lo copio.
All right. And run that up.
Está cargando.
Yeah, there are a lot of points.
Sí. Claro, entonces cuando le pones color y fill hace como que se... Claro, que lo divida, ¿no? Ya.
Now, by default, it's going to pick like magenta and green, I think. Something like that.
Ya, perfecto, ya, excelente. Ya. Muchas gracias, Gonzalo, te pasaste, gracias.
Does anybody else have any further question? Okay, I guess not. So, recap of what we've done and a recap of what I've said. This is the last time that we are going to do pure code. Starting this Saturday, we are going to do applications in finance of whatever the topics we're seeing. And right after our class on the Saturday, so next week, if it's not holiday for Easter, we have our first test, and you are going to get asked about time series, you're going to get asked about simulations, you're going to get asked about making functions or solving some cases with what you know and what you're expected to know by the classes, tutorials, and resources. Jose.
Gonzalo, no sé si podrías subir prácticas de los ciclos pasados para ir chequeándolos.
I will not, but I will give you everything that you need for it.
Ya está bien, gracias.
Okay.
Gonzalo,
Yep.
en el sílabo sale que la práctica es este sábado, entonces va a ser la próxima semana, no esta.
It's going to be after the third tutorials, so it's after, not this week, basically.
El sábado de Semana Santa, entonces.
If it's not holiday, yes. If it is a holiday, then next week after that.
Yeah, gracias.
Gonzalo, eso nos lo dirías el sábado.
Yeah, this Saturday I'll have the answer.
Ya, gracias.
No problem. Very well. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Gracias, Gonzalo. Cuídate.